So he's literally talking about having these mind-reading sensors which are linked to your implantable microchip, knowing whether you're guilty or not, whether you've committed the crime, and indeed whether you plan to commit the crime. Literal Minority Report, pre-crime policing. And of course, that would never be open to abuse, would it? They would never frame people for doing anything, would they? Because you can trust them. He talks about in his books the fact that they tried to get all this through after 9/11, but there was mass public resistance against it. Of course, they took a big bite out of the apple after 9/11. We got a lot of this police state facial recognition cameras basically accepted by the general public, but they didn't accept everything. So now coronavirus will be that new excuse to get the rest of the program through, and it's frightening. Now, of course, the global elite over the past 4 years, and this has particularly come to prominence over the past few weeks, have openly announced that their rebranding of the New World Order is called the Great Reset. And in his books, Klaus Schwab, the originator of the Great Reset, literally admits that there's been mass resistance to the New World Order, to the global centralization of power over the past 20 years, and that they need a new excuse to rebrand it. And in the words of Justin Trudeau, they need to exploit the, quote, opportunity that COVID-19 has provided for them to reinitiate that agenda. And in fact, the Great Reset was trending for hours and hours on Twitter yesterday. Basically, half the trend was a bunch of people claiming it was a conspiracy theory. It's literally in the World Economic Forum's documents. Time magazine has giant sections on their website boasting about it, but it's still a conspiracy theory. What most people don't realize, though, is that it goes far deeper than just restructuring the economic system, which is how it was introduced, at least in the public eye, by our friend Klaus Schwab. We had this headline yesterday. Klaus Schwab, the Great Reset will lead to a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identity. And he's made it clear that transhumanism is an integral part of the Great Reset when he said the fourth industrial revolution would lead to a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identity, which in his book he clarifies is implantable microchips that can read your thoughts. And I did another article on this today because there's so much information in these 3 books that he has written over the past 4 years. One of them called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. The second one was called Shaping the Future of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And the most recent one, of course, was called COVID-19, The Great Reset. And in these 3 books, he lays out how this is a plan, not just for total draconian technocrat tracking and control of the global population, but it's literally about creating their favorite thing, which Ray Kurzweil talked about back in the late 90s, in the age of spiritual machines, which is merging man with machine, literally creating human cyborgs. And those people who refuse to become a human cyborg, well, they'll be left on the dumpster heap of history. They'll be a lower caste race, basically. They'll be ignored. They won't be able to travel. They won't be able to buy train tickets. They won't be able to go to pop concerts. And as we talked about earlier, they won't be able to get jobs. Now, there's a lengthy article on a website called winteroak.org.uk. And the headline is Klaus Schwab and his Great Fascist Reset. And this is a guy who's read all 3 books. And this is basically, it's probably a 25-page article outlining the Great Reset agenda that goes way beyond public statements, video statements, what you saw Trudeau saying to the UN conference there. And it talks about the actual fully fleshed agenda. And I'm going to get into some of it now because it goes way beyond the economic factors that they're trying to introduce. They're trying to dismantle the global capitalist system, of course, to redistribute the wealth. But of course, that only means distributing it to an increasing concentration amongst themselves. And in this article, the writer points out that in his 2016 book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, this was the first one, Klaus Schwab, who sounds like Dr. Strangelove, by the way, if you've seen his videos, very appropriate, writes about the Uberization of work and the consequent advantages for companies, particularly fast-growing startups in the digital economy. He says, as human cloud platforms classify workers as self-employed, they are for the moment free of the requirement to pay minimum wages, employer taxes, and social benefits. So again, this is all about concentrating wealth into the giant transnational corporations. It has nothing to do with solving wealth inequality or raising the standard of living generally. It has to do with the exact opposite, and that's borne out in this article. And he talks about automating jobs to the point where basically everything's automated, and then they'll give everyone else a basic universal income, which will be a minimum wage income. And of course, this will coincide with rolling lockdowns where you're not even allowed outside your house, but they'll just provide enough to basically have you on the breadline while they have robots doing jobs, while people don't have dignity, while people have no incentive to strive to build businesses, because it's all done by robots and it's all done by algorithms. But then he gets into the true undercurrent of this, which again is transhumanism, and he waxes lyrical about the fourth industrial revolution, which he insists is, quote, unlike anything humankind has experienced before. Again, this isn't just dry globalist rhetoric about economic restructuring. He gushes, quote, consider the unlimited possibilities of having billions of people connected by mobile devices, giving rise to unprecedented processing power. He talks about online education involving the use of virtual and augmented reality to drastically improve educational outcomes, to sensors installed in homes, clothes, accessories, cities, transport, and energy networks. This, of course, is the energy of things. This is about Google, which we talked about, 10, 15 years ago, literally having audio sensors installed in every room in your home. So you don't need to say, hey, Siri anymore. You just need to say, hey, Google. You can be anywhere in your house. You can be anywhere outside because it's all connected via 5G. And he talks about them not even needing to have that audio input, that they will literally read your mind, know what you want to search for on the internet, because you'll have an implantable microchip that will literally give them access to your mind. What could possibly go wrong? He talks about sensors, wired, which can communicate to each other through a mobile phone network, which is, of course, is 5G. He even talks about people giving permission for this obscure network, this technocrat network, to have access to read their thoughts. So people don't even need to type out their own tweets, because the technocrat network will guess what they want to tweet in advance and tweet it for them. So literally taking away the very right to possess your own thoughts. Says the tools of the fourth industrial revolution enable new forms of surveillance and other means of control that run counter to healthy open societies. But then he goes on to advocate all of them and present them in a positive light. He says public crime is likely to decrease due to the convergence of sensors, cameras, facial recognition software. And he then describes with some relish how these technologies can intrude into the hitherto private space of our minds, reading our thoughts and influencing our behavior. So literally having microchips which interact with this network, with this 5G network that allows them, the technocratic elite, to read your thoughts and influence your behavior. This is in his own book. This is not Alex Jones from 20 years ago. This is not Minority Report from 20 years ago, although he does directly endorse Minority Report pre-crime policing. He predicts in his own book, as capabilities in this area improve, the temptation for law enforcement agencies and courts to use techniques to determine the likelihood of criminal activity, assess guilt, or even possibly retrieve memories directly from people's brains will increase. So he's literally talking about having these mind-reading sensors which are linked to your implantable microchip, knowing whether you're guilty or not, whether you've committed the crime, and indeed whether you plan to commit the crime. Literal Minority Report pre-crime policing. And of course, that would never be open to abuse, would it? They would never frame people for doing anything, would they? Because you can trust them. He goes on to advocate a situation where somebody who is crossing a national border might one day involve a detailed brain scan to assess an individual's security risks. Now, this is the point. He talks about in his books the fact that they tried to get all this through after 9/11, but there was mass public resistance against it. Of course, they took a big bite out of the apple after 9/11. We got a lot of this police state facial recognition cameras basically accepted by the general public, but they didn't accept everything. So now coronavirus will be that new excuse to get the rest of the program through, and it's frightening.
The globalists are trying to censor what you can see and what you can share. Don't let them win. Go to our emergency election newsletter at Infowars.com/newsletter. Sign up for free and get intel they don't want you to have, and then share it. Infowars.com/newsletter. It's time to override the censors and get the truth out. America in Crisis, Emergency Lockdown 2 is coming. Support InfoWars in the fight against total economic collapse and Biden martial law disguised as Lockdown 2. Up to 60% off, plus free shipping and triple Patriot points on everything. And we got DNA Force Plus and Alpha Power back in stock, Bodies back in stock, BioTrue Selenium back in stock, Ultra 12 back in stock, Bottom Mineral Fusion back in stock, selling out quickly. I'm going to say this right now. We called it Anthroplex, super strong, boost your body's, natural test. Boost all these things. It's so good for your immunity. Nothing does that like boosting your test. It was a bestseller under Anthroplex, but somebody had a copyright. They threatened us. So I changed the name to Alpha Power. Super strong, super high quality. We haven't had this in a year because I waited, and then by the time COVID hit, we couldn't get it in the high quality version. It finally was available, and the company told us that we're getting the supply from. We may go out of business because of the total lockdown. You better put in a bigger order if you ever want to get it again. We may close in the new year. Now, why is this product special? What is in this? What does it do? Well, it's got a bunch of things in it, but it's got these proprietary ingredients: LJ100, Eurycoma, Longphalangia, organic maca, horny goatweed, tribulus, fruit extract, rice grain concentrate, niacin, and zinc. By the way, we were putting zinc in this before. Putting zinc in things are cool. Zinc just supercharges everything you do. It's got an organic zinc in it. It's back in stock, 50% off at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And it funds this whole operation. Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula, sold out for months, back in stock. So good for your cells, so good for your immunity, so good for your inflammation. It's back in stock, 50% off, InfoWarsStore.com. DNA Force Plus is the one thing I'd be doing other than X2. X2, clean, pure iodine. It's essential for all human activity. As much as I'm stressed out, as much as I fight, as much as I do, I could not operate. I'd be dead without taking these products. When I forget to take them, I feel it. Now, it's expensive. DNA Force Plus is expensive because PQQ and CoQ10 and the high-quality forms are very expensive. You can't find formulas with anywhere near this dose for anywhere near this price. Look at that, 99% reviews, 4.9 stars, InfoWarsStore.com. It's 50% off, free shipping, triple Patriot points for your next order. Sign up for auto ship, an additional 10% off on your next order. But it's all back in stock. InfoWarsStore.com. We need a lot of money to fund this operation, be able to do all this and take on the globalists. You want to see more action, get in there and buy the products. I appreciate you all. I'm just saying, point blank, stop the steal. Republican Crisis sale right now. American Crisis, Emergency Lockdown 2 coming. Get the products while you still can.